Hey guys, welcome to the video. Salt here. Today we're going to be going over the brand new Prime weapon that came out yesterday, the Cedo Prime. Now, just a little bit of a disclaimer about my builds is that they are done without external buffs or influences. That would be things like Warframes using abilities, pets putting statuses on enemies, things like that. And so I just leave it up to the viewer to make their own intelligent conclusions when they do add those external things. Okay, let's go ahead and go into our little cave here. We have the top commenter of the last video, Asterial9534. The first commenter of the last video, Alex Perez, 1967. And our recent supporters are Colonel Cedo 6, Alfofo, and Toxic Sneeze. Thank you so much for your support. And of course, we're doing the Cedo Prime today. I'm going to go ahead and go down at the arsenal here. So the Cedo Prime is a primary shotgun. Visually, it looks very similar to the non-primed version. Maybe this front bumper is different. That's the only thing I could, maybe pick out to be a bit different than the regular Cedo. But I kind of like the way the regular Cedo looked anyway, so, this doesn't bother me too much that it looks the same. Okay, before we go over the mods, I want to go over unique and interesting things about the Cedo Prime. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll over the unique trait here so you can kind of read along as well. So the Cedo Prime does plus 60% damage per unique status on the enemy. The Cedo also has an innate 0.8 meter punch through, and it has an alternate fire that launches a bouncing glaive that explodes on impact in a 6 meter radius, and it's able to bounce up to 11 times. Now, the glaive's direct hits apply status based on your listed status chance, but the glaive explosions apply two separate forced procs. The first forced status proc is based off of your modded status types, and the second forced proc is randomized between the 4 basic elements. So that would be heat, cold, electric, and toxic. The other unique thing about the Cedo Prime, if I scroll down on its status sheet here, its radial attack on the glaive also has a blast element on it. Okay, I think we can go over the mods now for the Cedo Prime here. We're going to start with Galvanized Hell for multi-shot, Galvanized Savvy for status chance and extra direct damage per status type affecting the target. So this is very similar to the Cedo's innate effect that basically does the same thing. Critical Deceleration for 200% critical chance. Primed Ravage for critical damage. Hunter Munitions for a 30% chance to apply a slash proc on a critical. Shotgun Barrage for plus 90% fire rate. There is an option here for like a side grade. Let me bring that up here. Let me type in fire rate. You're going to want fire rate on this weapon, but there's another fire rate mod that's kind of close maybe to beating Shotgun Barrage out. And it's actually one of the brand new magnetic mods, Magnetic Strafe. So remember, Shotgun Barrage is plus 90 fire rate. Now, Magnetic Strafe is only plus 40, so it's a lot less fire rate, but you get magnetic with it as well. Magnetic is really nice, especially since the glaive is going to be able to kind of throw a bunch of magnetic procs around. So this is pretty good. This is really a personal preference thing. Do you personally value more fire rate or do you value magnetic procs on enemies? Both are valid decisions, I think. I don't think there's a correct or incorrect answer. So this is kind of a personal preference thing. Personally, I do value Shotgun Barrage slightly more just for the extra fire rate. But if you went with Magnetic Strafe, that would be completely fine. Okay, in the next 2 slots here, we're going to have our element, which is going to be Viral. So we have Toxic Barrage for the 60/60 Toxin, and we're going to go with a Primed Chilling Grasp Cold mod for the 165 Cold. So if we look at the Cedo's status chance per projectile, it's 4.8. It has a multi-shot of 14.7. That's not including the conditional with Galvanized Hell. So probably with the conditional, it's going to be about like 21, 22-ish. So on average, you're probably going to produce, not taking into account the glaive, because the glaive does all kinds of crazy statuses. Some of them are forced, some of them aren't. But just the actual shotgun portion of the Cedo, on average, you're going to produce 1 status per shot. And what element is okay with being produced in small amounts? Well, it's viral or magnetic. In this case, we're going to go with viral because viral is usually a little bit more valuable than magnetic. And so that's why we go with viral here. Now, why don't we go with both 60/60s? Well, it's because it kind of already has a mediocre status chance per projectile. And a lot of the times you still are going to get forced viral procs because of the glaive. So You don't really need both 60/60s. I think you're okay with just using one 60/60 for Toxin and then use the primed Chilling Grasp for just some extra damage. Okay, let's go ahead and go into the Exilus slot here. I'm going to be going for Counterbalance. This is minus 60% weapon recoil. This weapon does kick a lot, and so that's why I like Counterbalance. It just makes the weapon feel a lot better. It makes it feel way more manageable. Now, there are a couple more options for the Exilus slot. Let me bring up the Exilus mods here. We'll go over the first option, which I think is the weakest, but it's an option that goes on a lot of shotguns, and that would be Galvanized Acceleration. This increases your projectile speed. Now, that's important on shotguns most of the time because shotguns have a stat called Fall Off. And what this is at a certain range, your shotgun is going to start doing less damage. Now, the Cedo's Fall Off, like where it starts doing less damage, is 26 meters out. That's pretty far already. Like, that's pretty damn far. So I don't feel like you need to increase that fall off range more with Galvanized Acceleration, but if you really wanted to, maybe you wanted to make your Cedo more of a mid-range, long-range shooter, you could use Galvanized Acceleration, and it would knock that fall off range like way out there. I just don't feel like it's super needed. I feel like I get more value out of the utility on Counterbalance. Now, the other option would be Vigilante Supplies. Vigilante Supplies is technically a DPS buff. It is a very small DPS buff, but it is technically a DPS buff because this is a 5% chance to enhance critical hits from your primary weapons. You figure every shot is about 20-ish pellets, and so every shot is going to have one of its crits upgraded to the next tier. So our build is mostly a yellow crit build, and so like every 20 pellets, one of those pellets will go from yellow to orange. It's not that big of a DPS increase, which is why I say it's a very small DPS increase, but it is technically a DPS increase. Now, personally, I'm going to value the weapon actually feeling better and me able to aim it better because of the negative recoil, and so that's why I'm going to be going for Counterbalance. But I think if you went with Vigilante Supplies, it's also a fine option. And even if you went with Galvanized Acceleration, just know that you're kind of choosing to be more of a medium range Cedo at that point with Galvanized Acceleration. Okay. Let's go over the arcanes now. And there are actually 3 arcanes that are really, really close to each other. So let's, I'm going to bring up the arcane list here. And it is going to be Primary Blight, Primary Frostbite, and Shotgun Vendetta. So let's talk about Primary Blight first. So Primary Blight is on a Toxin status effect. You get critical damage and multi-shot stacking up to 40 times. Now, altogether, this is going to be 144% critical damage and 72% multi-shot for 12 seconds. We look at Primary Frostbite. This is very similar, but this is on a cold status effect. You get crit damage and multi-shot stacking up to 40 times. Altogether, this one is going to be 120% crit damage and 90% multi-shot for 12 seconds. Now, out of Blight and Frostbite, I do value Frostbite slightly more than Blight because Frostbite has a higher multi-shot value, about 20 higher. And on the Cedo, because it has a higher than average multi-shot amount, like much higher than average, you get a lot of value out of multi-shot. So I do value Frostbite more than Blight because of that. However, like I said, on testing this morning, when I was doing the kill times, I had my little stopwatch out and it was really hard to tell which one was actually doing better or worse. And so, as far as the testing goes, really hard to tell the difference between these 3. But if I was to just kind of guess myself, I would guess that Frostbite is more valuable than Blight because of the extra multi-shot. Now, when it comes to Frostbite versus Shotgun Vendetta, this is a little bit harder because Frostbite is only 90 multi-shot, where Vendetta is 180 multi-shot, so like literally double the amount. But that's really all you get with Vendetta. You get some reload speed too, which is nice, but it's not super needed. So you're using this more for the 180 multi-shot. Frostbite's 90 multi-shot, but it's also 120 crit damage. I mean, 120 crit damage is basically an entire mod that you're putting on your weapon. So again, when it came to testing, like the kill times, there was no real like discernible difference between Vendetta and Frostbite. I felt maybe that Frostbite felt a little bit better. It felt a little bit punchier, but the kill times were the same. So this is kind of up to you. You can either go with Frostbite or Vendetta. I think it's really just going to come down to what you have unlocked. If you have Vendetta unlocked and you don't have Frostbite, then go with Vendetta. If you have Frostbite unlocked and you don't have Vendetta, go with Frostbite. So now the next thing you might be saying is, well, Salt, you know, you're showing us Frostbite and you're showing us Blight, and these two require, you know, this one requires a Toxin status and this one requires a Cold status. And your weapon doesn't have Cold, it has Viral. Well, remember that the Glaive, it cycles through all the 4 basic elements on that forced proc. And because of multi-shot, it's actually getting a lot of those elements. And so it's actually very easy to stack up this to 40 on Cold, or stack this up to 40 on Toxic. You know, so that's really a non-issue. So me personally, I'm going to be sticking on Frostbite, but I think Vendetta is very close to being about the same. Again, could technically be also better Vendetta than Frostbite, but I couldn't tell the difference there. So, all right, enough about that. This is how you build out the Cedo Prime. I'm going to be showing this in about 10 minutes of Steel Path gameplay. I'm going to be doing this on a big dumb Anaros with no Archon shards that increase weapon performance, no mods or arcanes on the Anaros that increase weapon performance, and with a pet with no Sentinel weapon and no mods on the pet that increase weapon performance. That way we could just get a look at how the Cedo performs by itself in 10 minutes, modded out. All right, mod, Steel Path, there we go.
Their rage is vehement, their focus impressive. Give them all warriors death.
So of course you're gonna, every pack of enemies, you're gonna want to fire a Glaive. To maintain Frostbite or Blight, if you want with Blight. To maintain Frostbite or Blight, you're going to want to at least do 1 Glaive every 12 seconds. However, I think in general, you should be doing more than 1 Glaive every 12 seconds. You want to be doing like maybe 2 or 3 Glaives every 12 seconds to get maximum value. For ribbon stats on this weapon, multi-shot is definitely the best stat. Crit damage, probably second best. And third best would be if crit chance, I don't know this for sure, but if a crit chance ribbon would get you into orange tier, that could be the next best one. If not, maybe not so much. Fire rate would be a nice third stat because you could just easily replace it over Barrage. So when I do these runs, average weapons will usually score about 500 to 700 kills in 10 minutes. Above average weapons, or weapons I consider good, will score 700 to 900 kills in 10 minutes. And meta weapons will score about 900 and over in 10 minutes. Now, it's a little bit of a spoiler here. This is my second take on this video because I switched. I wasn't sure if I wanted to use Prime Point Blank or if I wanted to use Hunter Munitions. And my first video I had up, I put Prime Point Blank on it because I thought it could make the damage more consistent because, you know, you're getting a lot of damage because of the unique trait on here. And most of the dudes, like in a perfect world, the dudes you're shooting at are going to be primed with your Glaive. But because the Glaive is kind of random how it bounces around, a lot of dudes, like the dudes I'm shooting at right now, aren't primed yet. And so, you know, flat damage from Prime Point Blank would be more consistent in those kind of crappy times where your Glaive didn't prime a bunch of dudes for some reason. However, I started doing the math and I was like, well, if I have Hunter Munitions on, between the Galvanized Savvy and the unique trait, the the slash from Hunter Munitions basically acts as 120 flat damage, which is not that far off from Prime Point Blank. Like Prime Point Blank is 165. You know, plus of course you get the slash procs from Hunter Munitions, which are quite valuable. So I guess we'll see here. With Prime Point Blank, my kill number in 10 minutes was 916, which was really friggin' good. And I'm afraid that Hunter Munitions might not be able to beat it. I also don't know that I have the best tile set here with Hunter Munitions. I do think Hunter Munitions is probably going to be better than Prime Point Blank. I have a feeling if Hunter Munitions doesn't beat it here, it could just be because of the tile set I'm on. But they would be very close. Regardless, they're very close to each other. Hunter Munitions is 120 flat, basically, and Prime Point Blank is 165 flat. But Hunter Munitions, you also get slash procs, which are valuable. So pretty close to each other. So we're trying to go to beat the Prime Point Blank setup this morning of 916 in 10 minutes. Of course, every run's going to be a little bit different. You're not always going to get the same tile sets. Maybe I screw up my glaives a little bit more in one run than I did another run. The other option over Hunter Munitions that I didn't go over was a faction mod. Faction mod would be an easy option over Hunter Munitions if you were into faction mods. I personally do not like faction mods. They used to be annoying already, like back in the day when there was like 3 faction mods and three main factions. But now that there's like 9 factions in the game with 5 different faction mods, like they're even more annoying to mod for. So I personally don't use faction mods, but if you do, it could just easily go over Hunter Munitions. Man, Vor, you're still up, living your best life here?
This death is temporary. My existence is forever. I cannot be destroyed.
We got about 3.5 minutes. Got to try to get these kill numbers up. I'm doing my best here. It's not necessarily the best tile set here. I think it was a little bit better fighting in the doorway here, trying to funnel them in. I'm going to try to stay out of that big room because otherwise they stay up on the balcony and they won't really funnel down. Now, you can't spam the glaive. You actually have to wait for the glaive to come back to you, which sometimes can be annoying because sometimes the glaive comes back very quickly, and sometimes the glaive decides it's going to go on the most epic adventure ever, and it's out for like friggin' 10 seconds doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So sometimes the return of the glaive can be a little bit random. Let's clear out what's behind us here. 2 minutes. Minute and a half left. Let's get this baby up there. We want to beat the prime point blank. We don't want the stinky flat damage mod to beat us here with Hunter Munitions. Although, you know, comparing these like 1 or 2 tile sets we've been fighting in compared to the prime point blank video, that one had a bit better tile set, so. If this doesn't beat it, I'm going to assume it's because of the tile set. Not because Hunter Munitions is weaker than prime point blank. I think they're very close, though. I think they are very close. But I think at the end of the day, you will get more value out of Hunter Munitions. Especially late game, where slash procs become very valuable. All right, we got 20 seconds. Come on, let's get these numbers up. I'm gonna ignore the Acolyte when he comes out. Just try to get these kill numbers up. Turn around, kill the guys behind us. Get out of here, Torment. Get out of here. We got 5 seconds. All right, that's it. That's it. 10 minutes. Let me head towards extraction, and we'll see what our numbers are here. 871. Okay. So the setup with prime point blank was 916 in 10. This is 871 with Hunter Munitions in 10. The prime point blank did have better tile sets than this one, so I'm going to kind of assume that's why. Also, every run's a bit different. You know, you get different tile sets. Maybe I screwed up on glaives a few more times on this run than I did on the prime point blank run. But at the end of the day, I think most people would agree Hunter Munitions is going to be better than prime point blank, but it's not that much better. It's probably just a little bit better, and it becomes more and more better as the game progresses, and enemies get higher levels, because then slash becomes a lot more valuable. All right, so that is the Cedo Prime. That's how to build it out. If you guys like the video, consider giving it a like. If you haven't subbed yet, consider subbing or tell me what I can do to earn your sub. And I hope you guys have an amazing day. Okay,